Hey guys, Tisha here, and we are back for another Love and Marriage Huntsville review. Pardon my voice, I'm just getting back from a game night and it's coming and going. I hope you all have had a happy holiday. This episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville, I don't really know how to feel about it. I feel like it was a throwaway episode, but there were some gems, especially concerning the mental health aspect, not just for Tiffany, but also for the Fletchers when we were talking about Chris and Chris Jr. I think that there were some good moments that were discussed, but there were also some things that we could have done without. I'm not going to go over everything verbatim because a lot of it was much of the same stuff, but we'll just go ahead and go through it. So we begin this episode with Tiffany walking in to Stormy's guest home with the baby in tow. Her scary tale really came there with the baby because as much junk as Tiffany talks, she did not want any true heat from Kiki. Stormy brings up the fact that, some of their problems have arisen based off of what happened in the past that has been seen on the show, as well as what happened when she had her interview with Carlos. Now, we know the things that were said on the podcast with Carlos. We've heard it several times. And Kiki basically says, look, I feel like some of the things that you said were not accurate, and that there were also some discrepancies and some lies told. She said that she felt like Tiffany keeps coming, for her. And she wants to know why Tiffany has felt this way, because Tiffany also feels like Kiki has been coming for her. They both feel the same way. They do a bunch of unnecessary back and forth that I do not care about because the both of them feel like they've been wronged by one another. We see clips of instances where they felt like they were being attacked by the other person. Tiffany claims that she's never the person that starts it, but she will finish it. And as I said earlier, it's the same stuff over and over again. Stormy points the fact out that Tiffany likes to be shady, but she does not like confrontation, and that the baby is her bodyguard. And I agree. Tiffany feels like the reason why they got to this point isn't because of them, but it's because of other people. And Tiffany is other people. If you keep going to other people and saying things, and these said people have interactions with Kiki, it's going to get back to her, much like the things that Kiki has said about you supposedly has gotten back to you. She backtracks and she apologizes for offending her. She admits to being shady a time or two. And she said that she understands why Kiki is saying, look, there are certain things that you should not speak on. Example, Tisha, if you don't know the full dynamic. So they both agreed to be cordial and get to know each other. We then have Martell, who is still getting things together in his home with these shades on from this surgery. Martell's home does not have a lot of furniture in it. So were you renting the furniture at the other place, or was that furniture that already came with the home? Because it looks like a lot of empty spaces. He has a table in the dining room area that's a long table with no chairs. He has an old school looking table in the kitchen area with not enough chairs for all of them kids, but he says it's enough for them. Chris comes over, they talk about the dinner and how it went left. Chris talks about how he feels like with Lexi walking out, most of her frustration comes from a materialistic stuff. I don't really agree with that. I think that she pointed that out as her main point of reference. And as a result, the other things that she was saying, the other feelings that she had about being left out and stuff like that, that it got looked over, like it got overlooked. They then talk about the conversation that Martell and Nell had. And Martell is like, look, your wife is disrespectful sometimes. He is not for a woman disrespecting a man, and he's going to check her if she goes beyond that. There is no way that if I were Chris, he would have been able to speak that way when we're referring to my wife, because Nell did not say anything disrespectful to him. Just because he didn't like what was said doesn't mean that's disrespectful. And Chris basically alludes to that as well. Like, okay, was it disrespectful or was it real? He even tells him that in the end, when he has a problem with Nell, he needs to address him. I'm glad that Chris brought that up. I also need for Chris to assert himself more, because all the back and forth that he had with Nell wasn't necessary. And rather than doing that, it all could have been avoided if he just talked to Chris. He said that he got upset with Nell because Nell took up for Mel, and she also brought up the whole cheating thing. I want him to come on because I'm so tired of this cheating thing. We know you cheated, but every time you talk about cheating, you give an excuse for it. So it doesn't seem like you really are remorseful for that. And we don't want to keep hearing about Mel supposedly cheating. He then talks about how, he got mad because Nell let him know that they were going to be going to the name changing ceremony, and how in his eyes, that's them picking a side. And Chris says, look, we're team Hope and we're team Rogers. We're not picking a side. We are staying in the middle. I don't know how long that's going to work, especially when you have him saying he's going to pick a side. And I also feel like even though they should not get in the middle of things, if you're a neutral party and I know that you look out for this man the way that you do, and I know that there are things that you've been made privy to that I did not know, I am not looking at you as someone who is a neutral party. I'm looking at you as someone that I can only tell certain things to. But obviously Mel has a certain dynamic with them because they were one of the few people from the cast that was invited to the actual ceremony. Martell says that he doesn't want to hear about her new name. And Chris is like, that's not her new name. It was already her name before she met you. He says he gets all of that, but he feels like Mel only did this because it was a way to try to cloud judgment towards him and be basically trying to destroy him. I really feel like this man thinks that Mel is worried about what he has going on. That woman just wants to disconnect from him. That's why she wants her name back. She doesn't want to be so strongly associated with him. And that should be okay. It truly was the final nail in the coffin for him. And he kind of alludes to that in his confession, like her doing this really does sever ties. So the divorce to him didn't sever ties. But now that she's done this, this really severs ties. We then see Kimmy. This scene with Tisha was too drawn out for me. They go to a vaginal rejuvenation place to do a V-steam. And at this place, we hear about how beneficial it is for your libido and for your womb and all these other things. Tisha looks good, but I noticed that she always is standing like she's struggling to breathe. Like she always looks like she's stuffed into her clothing, which we later find out that she said that she's put on some weight gain and stuff like that. So maybe she's not as comfortable and that's why she's doing it. Kimmy lets us know that she's doing this again to improve her sex drive. Girl, at this point, we do not care about your sex drive because we feel like it's very insensitive for your husband to make this such a big deal. Like, we don't care. Talk about something else. Tisha talks about how she needs to do a pregnancy test, and she brings it because she's had all these different symptoms that make her feel like she may be pregnant despite her having despite her husband having a vasectomy. She takes a test there. She finds out she's not. And even though they joke around about him having a vasectomy, people do get pregnant off of vasectomies. And I know someone actually who's pregnant now. And she was very upset when she found out because he has a vasectomy. And it didn't work, apparently, because she is with child. The scene was too long. Kimmy wants to be in a space where all the girls can come there. She wishes that they could come to this event because she thought it would be good. But Tisha doesn't want them there because she said if they were all there, she would have had to talk about Kiki. And she doesn't want to keep talking about Kiki. And Kimmy's like, well, can you blame them? Because We did have the incident with them throwing the drink in your face. And she was like, yeah, but it's going beyond that. Mel wants to know, like, if there's something that led up to it and all these other things. And I didn't want to talk about it. So then Kimmy talked about how Mel feels like you're upset with her. And that you've been upset since what happened at the town hall meeting with the expo. And she's like, no, I'm not upset with her. I actually got a lot of other things going on beside that, to the point where I'm wondering if I should stop the business aspects and just be a stay-at-home mom, because we have the renovation, and then we have the stuff going on with building a home, and then we have the stuff going on with, you know, the nonprofit not working out and having to cancel that night because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. If y'all would have found the permits, filed the permits, did whatever, you could probably still try to do it now. Maybe you could have had the event, or maybe you could have talked with someone that could do it. But it's just a whole bunch of excuses. And I don't understand why we're talking about those things, but we're not talking about the fact that her husband is being sued, and how that may be one of the major issues. For us to have seen this land so many seasons ago, where y'all purchased this land and how you wanted all your family out there, to now we don't even see you all go out there like that. That makes me feel like the house is not coming anytime soon. We've seen houses be built in a week. So what are y'all doing? As she's talking about all the different things, she says that Eva Marceau recommended that maybe they do counseling. And given how he feels about counseling, even Kimmy is shocked by this. That's the end of them. We then go to Chris. And this exchange between his son and Chris made me get a little teary-eyed, because you can see that there's a pain there within his son, and he really doesn't know how to express it. They meet up, they discuss dinner and how it went, and Chris Jr. says that he feels like it was a lot, not just with Lexis, but with the whole family. He says that he hasn't spoken not just to his mother, but to anyone since the dinner, which we know at this point has been several weeks ago. We then find out, based on what Chris Sr. is saying, that basically his daughter, his oldest daughter, is not the only one who isn't around. We find out that Chris Jr. is often not around either. So he's just like his sister in that regard. He says part of the reason why he doesn't come around is because he has a lot of stuff going on. And with everything that he has going on, he doesn't want to come around to hear all the criticism that he hears from the family when he's really trying to get himself together. He says, look, we all have issues, but when they come down on him, it's just too much. Chris Sr. says that's why the family is supposed to come together. That's why, you know, they're supposed to be able to discuss issues. And I don't agree with that. I feel like sometimes people think that just because they're your family, then that means that they're owed something. Based on the little bit that we saw from the dinner, I don't think that Chris is obligated to tell anyone anything, because it's not a safe space. I'm not saying Chris Jr. is right in the things that he's done, but you're kicking him while he's down, mother included. He says to his dad, like, look, at this point, there's times where I leave out at 2:00 in the morning. I don't know where he said he goes, because they kind of bleeped it out. He's telling him all this. He's saying he doesn't really get some sleep. And Chris Sr. says, it sounds to me like you're going through depression, that I myself have been there before. And then Chris talks about, you know, depression in Black men. And he gets very emotional, saying, like, it is my job as your father to always be here for you. And I will. I don't care what you have going on. Call me if you need me. And if you can't talk to me, then we'll find somebody. I want you to find someone, because he obviously doesn't feel like he can talk to you about certain things. So give him another safe space, another outlet. Doesn't have to be a female. It can be another male psychologist or something like that. But find somewhere for that young man to go, because if you're catching it this early on, you can work with this. And he seems to be receptive, because even the son says like, yeah, we need to hang out more, Dad. We got to be around each other more. And I think that what I would like to see is for them to hang out without Nell, because Nell very much requires to be the center of attention. And sometimes certain things require a lighter touch, and that's not her approach. She's like a dog that's just nipping at you. He needs what Chris brings, which is that balance. End of that scene. We then get to a heavier scene, in my opinion, which is Tiffany. And you know what? Let me not say heavier, because they're both heavy. We see Tiffany folding clothes, and she's holding the baby. That baby is always in her arms or someone else's arms. She's talking about to Lou how things went with Stormy and Kiki. She said that she appreciated the side that she was able to see of Kiki in this talk, that it was a different side of her where she was taking accountability and she was calm. Lou says that he's happy that the talk went well, considering everything that she's been feeling lately. Tiffany is depressed. And in this scene, it's obvious how she's really struggling, and postpartum is real. Now, some of us weren't sure about some of the things that she was saying when they went to that trip to the park, myself included. But seeing her here and seeing how vulnerable she was and raw she was with her emotions, I believe that Tiffany is struggling more than she's even telling us. Lou claims that this is one of the things that he was concerned about with her getting pregnant. And this is one of the things that he didn't want to happen. It's kind of like I told you so without saying I told you so. And he kind of fixed it up with saying, but we've been blessed and we're here now. His actions to me show otherwise. He really didn't show me earlier on that he cared about his wife's feelings, because we did see her express some things to you earlier in this season. They talk about filming till 9 o'clock or starting at 9 o'clock to film, and all the drama that goes on and all these other things, and how so much is required of her with being on the show, and the things that people are saying in social media is negatively affecting her. And Lou feels that this show is doing more harm to her in her state than it's doing good. Now, considering the fact that money is an issue, because even though they're saying it's not, Tiffany keeps bringing up how she's concerned about these cars that they're going to have to purchase for their kids and all these other things. Let's be real. Money is a concern. It is important for her to put her mental health in front of all of that. So as I heard them talking, I was like, leave the show, because we saw the title and I said, you're not even on it enough for you to allow it to cause extra unnecessary tension or drama or aid to your depression. Get off. Period. He says he doesn't want her to lose her. The show to me doesn't have anything to do with that. I think that the baby and what she's gone through since having the baby and how her body has adjusted has really caught her off guard, that she wasn't expecting it. But postpartum is not anything that you can predict. It happens to some women, doesn't happen to others. Some women don't even realize that they were in it until they're out of it or until years down the line. Let's be clear, Lou has been gone. It's one of the things that Tiffany has been complaining about. Tiffany talks about how she wants to feel like herself again. And Lou says, I'm glad you finally let this out because you've been holding it. And she hasn't been holding it, because we saw her tell you this. We saw her sit down outside at that park and tell you all of these things. And you acted like she was asking too much of you because you got this dream job that you wanted and you're away. And she needed you. She needed help. Even if it was a nanny or something, even if it was an in-home therapist, she needed more. He said that at this point, it's his job to protect and provide for the family, and he will continue to do that. Bye. Bye, Lou. I really, really hope that Tiffany gets the help that she needs. It was sad to see her sitting there crying. I'll be honest, while she was crying, I got a little teary-eyed because you can feel how sad she was in that scene. And even though she probably, parts of her did want to stay on the show because it has its benefits, her mental health is what matters most. At the end of the show, they did put the phone number up, and I feel like if anyone out there is finding themselves depressed or in need of talking to someone, that you do so. I actually need to go back and look and see what the number is so I can make sure that I pin it, because your mental health really matters. I am a person that strongly believes in self-improvement, in addressing issues that we're tend to taught to suppress. There's a lot of things that generations before us taught us and did that really weren't that healthy and really caused us to suppress things and not know how to deal with things in a healthy manner. And it's so important to do things like what we're seeing on this show. We're seeing people talk about their issues, and hopefully we'll see them seek help or find out later on that they did and that they're doing better. You guys, let me know your thoughts down below. If there's anything that I did not discuss that you would like to, go ahead and put in the comments section. Please like the video if you have not already. Subscribe if you have not already. I'm on the road to 1,000, and I would like to get there sooner than later. Until next time.